Okay, I think we can start then. So, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Satya from Sustimi, the Sustainable Education Academy, and I welcome each one of you to this webinar on Energy Auditing 101. So, before we could start, I would request you all to mute your microphones and turn on your video, as you know, talking to black boxes on the screen as is very disconcerting, as Bruce mentioned earlier. And please, as we go through the entire webinar, please feel free to put your questions in the chat box so that we can answer your queries as well. The webinar will be presented by Bruce. Bruce founded energy service company Carbontex in Melbourne back in 2001, which provides energy auditing, consulting services, and product delivery, and successfully tendering against multinational companies such as Schneider Electric and Honeywell. After selling Carbontex in 2013 to the owners of Australia's largest retail lighting company, he has subsequently delivered consulting or training services across 10 different countries in in Asia as well as Pacific region. He was the lead energy efficiency policy consultant to the Malaysian building sector energy efficiency project, and contributed to the energy efficiency elements in the 16th Malaysian plan. Since 2012, Bruce has represented the Australian Institute of Air Conditioning, Refrigeration and Heating on Australia and New Zealand Standard Committee EN001, Energy Management and Audits, and helped write Australia and New Zealand Standard 3598 to 2014 Energy Audits. He's the chair of Efficiency Valuation Organization, Extended Training Committee, and regular guest lecturer at RMIT and Melbourne universities. So Bruce has undertaken energy audit of hundreds of sites covering well over 1,000 buildings, and has guided energy users to achieve their energy saving of up to 80% at individual site. With a further ado, I'll quickly hand over to Bruce so that he can take it further.
Thank you very much, Satya, for the introduction. And I also want to thank Rajni Yehuda for inviting so many people also to the webinar. Thanks, Rajni. So could I please just reiterate that I'd really love it if you could put your cameras on, but microphones off. And also, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box. And Satya will be monitoring the chat box, but normally I'm going to leave the questions till after the presentation. Hopefully we have about half an hour for question and answers. Okay, so I also just need to highlight that this webinar is mostly focused on commercial and industrial energy audits, and not so much on residential buildings. So let me just start sharing my screen and then start going through my presentation. Just bear with me. Whenever I do this on Zoom, I have to rearrange my screen slightly so I can see what I'm doing properly. Just bear with me a second, please. So I can still see you and present at the same time. It's kind of tricky. Okay, great. Well done. Now, we have the agenda I want to go through is covering what is an energy audit for those of you who aren't that familiar. Hopefully most of you are, but then more importantly, what is a successful energy audit? What are those elements of success? What do you need to do as an energy user when commissioning or managing an energy audit? And also what you should be doing if you're an energy auditor. So I want to look at both sides, the energy audit client, and the energy auditor themselves. Then I want to talk a little bit about how you can learn more about energy auditing, and we'll have the question and answer session. So just briefly, what is an energy audit? Well, let's see. I see it as delivering two main things. The first thing is an energy use breakdown, which gives you an indication of where energy is used at the site. And then based on this breakdown, you know where to focus your attention. So if we look at the pie graph on the screen, you can see that cooling and ventilation and the yard lighting for this particular site were the main energy users based on that energy use breakdown. And so they should be the main areas of focus of identifying saving opportunities. You know, I could put effort into identifying savings in refrigeration and the kitchen, for example, but as that's only 5% of energy use, it won't make much of a difference. So it's important that the energy use breakdown sort of gives you and the user, and users really like this breakdown because they know then where the energy is used. Then the second main output is just the business case. It's the business case that identifies what are the savings measures and the costs and benefits, greenhouse gas savings, and estimated payback of those savings measures. So just on the screen here, you can see a typical table from an energy audit showing the this sort of table that would be part of an energy audit report. Okay, one thing an energy audit doesn't do, and those of you familiar with energy audits will know this, is it actually doesn't save any energy. It's just a report. And I think that this is sometimes lost, this fact that the energy audit doesn't save energy. I might mention that a bit more later. So let's look at what is a successful energy audit. I'd like you, I'm just going to pause for a moment now, and if you can put in the chat box, just write down a couple of words, a small phrase. What do you think is a successful energy audit? So just put in the chat box there. You'll find the chat box on the Zoom controls there somewhere. What do you think is a successful energy audit? Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Bruce. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Great webinar.
I can see a few of you typing away, so I'm looking forward to that, seeing your responses. You thought you were coming a webinar to just get a lecture, but I'm actually asking you to do something. Sorry about that. Okay, so we have identifying areas of energy consumption and measures to save or reduce them. Yeah, that's right. So we're coming up with savings measures. If we could estimate the near to actual energy use scenario. Yeah, so as you saw in that pie graph earlier, that was a bit of an estimate, and ideally that would be accurate of where that energy is used. Julian, thanks for this. To identify actionable opportunities to reduce energy emissions and save operating costs. Yes. Liz, thanks for this. One that ultimately identifies ways for the client to reduce energy consumption and save on costs and CO2 emissions. That's fantastic. Thanks for your contributions. So I'm going to put forward to you now three of what I think are the top three. And I think there is some overlap here with what you've come up with. So the first one is that the advice is acted on. So you may ask, well, why is it the responsibility of the auditor to ensure that the advice is acted on if you're the energy auditor? And if you're coming from the perspective of an energy user, you may think, well, why should I be committing to act on the advice? Well, and I'm actually just going to launch a poll now. If you could just give me a bit of your background, so that polling should come up just as I move on. When an energy audit is undertaken, I guess it's undertaken with the very best intentions. So the auditor is going to do a lot of hard work. They'll probably get some sleepless nights because if you really want to understand a building, often you have to go into the building when it's unoccupied and see what's happening in the site when it's unoccupied. Often that reveals some really good savings opportunities. And they may have some expensive tools that they're using for the audit. And then if you look on the other side, from the side of the energy user, they're going to be spending quite a bit of money on the energy audit, many thousands, or perhaps over $10,000, $20,000. It really depends on the size of the site. Their reputation is on the line because they've gone and requested the funding for the audit. And they're also investing quite a lot of time in collecting data. So basically, with all this effort put in, we would expect that it would result in some measures being implemented and delivering savings. But unfortunately, the energy audit success rate of many audits is actually not that good. Here in my state of Victoria, in Australia, the state government has, over the last several years, funded many hundreds of energy audits. I happen to know the guy administrating the program, and I asked him, well, what is the implementation rate of the audits? What percentage of audits have one or more savings measure implemented? So, and he came back with quite a disturbing response for me. He said that only 50% of the sites audited had more than one or more measure implemented. Now, the state government was also offering a small amount of funding for implementation as well. So people have undertaken audits and then they've said, no, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not even going to take the state government's money to go ahead and implement anything. So I would view that perhaps half of those audits, and this is not just typical of Australia, it's typical everywhere. Energy audits often are done with the best of intentions, but unfortunately the implementation happens to be low. So for me, a successful energy audit is one where it's implemented, and a 50% failure rate is terrible. I don't know about you, if any of you, those of you who are energy auditors, but if you've worked really hard to deliver an audit and then nothing happens with it, I tell you what, you feel pretty bad. In actual fact, sometimes I feel, why have I wasted my time? You know, I've only got one life. I want to do some good with it. I've done an energy audit and nothing's happened with it. You know, a toss of a coin. It's terrible. So for me, a successful energy audit is one that is implemented. And I feel often that for those of us who do energy auditing, we always think about technology. We don't think about people. We don't think about the business. And we don't think about moving ahead. So then the second aspect of a successful energy audit, as I see it, is that the energy savings and the cost of the works are roughly in line with the estimates put forward by the audit report. Now, the audit report won't be able to get everything right. And, you know, sometimes I see in audit reports, and I used to do this myself, I try not to do it anymore, you'll see the energy auditor says you're going to save $52,000, $376.42. Not possible. These are rough estimates. At best, you'll have two significant digits, maybe only one. So you might want to say, yeah, I think you'll save about $50,000. Would probably be a lot more realistic because that really reflects the reality of what you're coming up with. Then the third one, I want to talk about this by giving a bit of an example first. The third, and this is the final one, of what I see a successful energy audit involving. This here is a heated swimming pool. Here in Melbourne, it's a large facility. I don't know if you can see right at the back, the windows there, there's a gym area there. I visited this during COVID, so there's no one actually in the site. Swimming pools use a lot of energy. They use a lot of gas energy for heating the pool. And here there's 4 boilers. Here's a photo of 3 of them. These are 1,000 kilowatt gas hot water boilers, which are providing heat for the pool. They use a lot of gas. And then on the next slide, we have another hot water boiler. This is an electric hot water boiler for making hot water for tea and coffee. Uses 2.4 kilowatts. That's the maximum power draw of this boiler. So I came into this site after an energy audit was undertaken, and the energy audit came up with 3 quantified savings measures. Remember if I had a table with lots of measures? Well, they came up with 3. Yeah. One of them was to replace or put a timer on this tea and coffee hot water boiler. That was one recommendation. The second recommendation was to upgrade the domestic fridges with more efficient fridges. And the third one was to upgrade some of the lighting to LED, reducing energy use at the site by a massive 0.9%. My subsequent assessment of that site identified 39 savings opportunities and how a 35% reduction in energy use could be achieved. That particular audit, which I saw, was a disgrace to the audit profession. It was terrible. In actual fact, it was so bad that they referenced the Australian standard, which I helped write. They said this audit is taken in accordance with the Australian standard, and they referenced section 12 of the standard. Unfortunately, the standard does not have a section 12. Now, whose fault was that? Was it the people commissioning the audit, or was it the auditors? Perhaps a little bit of combination of both. The client should have known what to expect from an audit and demanded more. And clearly the auditor was totally incompetent. An audit should identify significant savings opportunities. As an auditor, you should be doing your very best to maximize the savings that are possible at that site. Now, savings will be different from site to site. You may only be able to find savings of 10%. And I've certainly worked in sites where all I can identify is a 10% saving. I'm generally pretty disappointed if it's only 10%. I'd like to save more. The best site I did identified a 80% energy saving, and that's without using any renewable energy technologies on the site. That's just pure energy efficiency. That was fantastic. And they implemented it and actually got the 80% saving, which is wonderful. So now let's look at what the energy user then needs to do to ensure that the audit is successful. Yeah. So for a successful energy audit outcome, I think there's a secret. Just a simple secret. Sorry, a lot of salespeople will tell you about the secret. Well, this for me is the secret, is that the energy auditor organization, the person arranging the audit, needs to, before the audit, get organizational support for implementation. So you're seeing the audit as just one step along the way, and you've got organizational support beforehand for implementing the savings measures that you know will be recommended. And surprise, surprise, you're not really upset when the energy auditor comes and tells you you've got to spend a lot of money to save energy. An energy audit won't save you any money at all. It's just advice. It's going to cost you a lot of time. If you really want to help the energy auditor, they're going to request a lot of information from you. It's going to cost you quite a bit of time to collect all that information. It's not going to reduce your greenhouse gas emissions. Only acting on that energy report will do it. So as I reflect back on that 50% audit implementation rate, I believe that perhaps that low implementation rate was because simply the energy user didn't really understand what an energy audit was and how it's best used and where it fits into the picture for saving energy. So if you want to save energy, you need to get top management commitment to invest time and resources into saving energy. Once you have that commitment and a substantial commitment, then you can implement the energy audit. The energy audit will tell you what to do, help you spend your money in the most cost-effective way, then you implement the audit. So my biggest frustration as an energy auditor is when nothing happens after the energy audit. Yeah? There's no action taken, there's no energy saved. It's really disappointing when that happens. Yeah. So an energy user, I'm going to give you a rough rule of thumb now. Roughly expect the audit to identify savings of roughly 20% with a 5-year payback. That's just a really rough rule of thumb. 20% savings with a 5-year payback. So if you do the sums, the energy auditor is going to tell you to spend roughly the same as what you spend a year on energy on the upgrades. Very rough number. Those numbers vary a lot. You know, every energy audit is different. But this is just a very rough idea. So if you as an energy auditor have someone approach you and ask, yeah, I want to do an energy audit. And they say, okay, well, the first question you should ask is, how much money have you got to spend on my recommendations? And you can find out, well, if you're spending $200,000 a year in energy, do you have $200,000 a year, $200,000 available for implementation? To get roughly a 20% saving. Now, sometimes at that example I gave earlier, where there was a 35% saving, I think the payback was 8 years. So if you do 35% times 8 years, they had to spend roughly, I think, 3 years worth of energy expense to get the savings I recommended. That's a fair bit of money. It ran into the millions of dollars in that particular site. But that's what energy efficiency is. You have to invest to save. And generally, it's a pretty good investment, much better than bank interest. And you can often go beyond what was estimated by engaging in the process and engaging in good energy management. Okay, so that's what the energy user needs to do. Now let's look at what the energy auditor needs to do for a successful outcome. So I'm just actually going to make this a little bit interactive now. I'm going to put you into some breakout rooms, and I want each room to have a bit of a discussion and come up, you'll have to unmute, and come up with the top 1 or 2 things that you think an energy auditor needs to do to ensure energy audit success. Just please have someone take notes, and then when you come back, we'll get that person to share briefly with the group, maybe type in the notes, we can put them on the whiteboard when we come back. So I'm going to put you into some breakout rooms now. I'll just create 4 rooms. Now, it's going to be a 2 or 3 minute exercise. You'll have to be fast. You'll have something pop up on your screen, jump into the room and then talk to the people in that group about what the energy auditor needs to do for a successful outcome. So some of you are back nice and quick. That's nice. Can I get you to just look at, so room 3, I think most of you are back, room 3 is all back. If you can just, if you know how to do this in Zoom, paste your answers in that box called 3 on the screen.
How do you do that?
You need to go to the annotate button. So there'll
okay.
be an annotate button, and then you can just type straight on the screen or paste. You go to a text box and then just paste whatever you wrote in there. Yeah.
Annotate, yes. Okay. So,
Thanks, Marshall.
It'll be difficult to write with the
right, yeah.
Oh, you don't know? No, just use the text box. There's a text one.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you can type. Yes.
You can just type
Shall
in.
I do that for what we discussed? Okay.
That would be great. Thanks, Rosny. That's group 3. So you can see on the screen, I've got a whiteboard just with the different group names, numbers on it. So Christian, Julian, and Sophie, you in room 1. If you don't mind just going to the annotate button and then find somewhere on your screen there, your screen will look a little different to mine. There's one called text. So you can just paste in that text box whatever you came up with as being the 1 or 2 things that you saw that an energy auditor needed to do to deliver a successful energy audit. Then room 2 was Aurelian, Satya, and Shavangi. Room 3, I think you know who you are. That's generally Liz, Rojni, and Halad. And then room 4 was Jonathan and Joshima. So yeah, just grab that text thing and just type something in there. Select the right tools. Fantastic. Thanks, Rajni. Yeah. Yes, using the right tools is pretty important. And your tools need to be reasonably accurate as well. Have we got any more coming in?
So, Bruce, it's a bit hard for me to type on my
on your phone. Sorry,
yeah,
Jonathan.
I'm trying to work it out, but yeah, it was just me on my own, so I couldn't talk to anybody.
Oh, sure. So what did you come up with, Jonathan? I'll just type it in for you.
Yeah, just what I was thinking, just get a bit of knowledge on the organization you're doing audit for. You know what they're looking for first, and what they what their goal, and also get their support. As well. Second.
Great. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. And get accurate data from them in terms of bill and stuff. There's no point doing an audit if you don't get, the energy usage, like they're missing data and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like knowledge about building services,
Sure.
in terms of HVAC system.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Knowledge of building services. Great. And then the other group had a few engaging with the organization. Great. Having the right skills, right tools, identify drawbacks in the system, exactly, to be able to suggest measures, understand how the system works. Great. Well done. You've come up with pretty much what are the things I'm going to go through. I'll just highlight them. There's three particular ones I want to look at. Sorry, my screen just needs adjusting here slightly. Sorry, just a chat, something coming in on the chat. I'll come back to that chat message shortly. Sorry, Julian, sorry you got to go. I'll catch you later. Can you see my screen, by the way? Can you see my screen? Yep, great. Yeah. Thanks, Rosny. The first thing I see is that you need to be engaging with the energy user, and I'm glad you highlighted that. That's really important. And this engagement is a key failure, I feel, in many energy audits. I love the way Jonathan highlighted the fact that you've got to sort of find out what they want, find out what they need, try and qualify them before you even start. So often a mistake that engineers like myself make, and I've made this mistake well, is we think it's all about just telling them what to do. But it's really about how you engage them and understanding what they want. And it's making sure that they know that they have to be thinking beyond the audit. They have to be thinking about the implementation, their time frame, and their budget before they actually even start the audit. And sometimes in your engagement with the energy user before the audit, you may come to a joint decision that an energy audit is not right for that organization at that particular point of time. For example, they've only got quite a small budget. available, you might say, well, at this stage, perhaps you should invest in just doing a partial lighting upgrade or something like that, that will deliver them savings, rather than just getting advice they can't act on. The second one I want to highlight is that it needs to follow a comprehensive process. You need to be following a process in order to get accurate estimates of benefits and costs, and to identify the many savings, and in order to be able to identify many savings opportunities. So this process goes all the way through from when you're first asked to quote in the audit through to post-audit follow-up. It's really important that you're following a comprehensive process to do that. I can't go into all the details. There's a lot of steps involved in following that comprehensive process. And then finally, and I like the way you guys highlighted this as well, is you need to have the technical expertise and knowledge to do it, or to be able to advise or to contract it in. So you may be surprised, but in my most recent audit, and I've got 20 years of experience doing energy audits, I actually got in some external expertise. So I know quite a bit about HVAC. Well, I got some people in who really know more about HVAC than I do, and we're really good in building controls, which is sort of facility needed. So don't be shy to bring in expertise if you don't have it, or try and develop the expertise yourself. So that's kind of just the three things that an energy auditor needs. So how can you learn more? So I want to talk briefly now about the approach to training that we're offering here in Systemi, which involves a process of developing good content, which adequately covers the subject matter and is structured in a way that engages well with the user. Then we like to include assessments in our training to provide feedback. Assessments are a really important part of learning anything. You want feedback on what you've learned. Have I learned right? Am I getting the correct answer? And if you've got the wrong answer, why it was wrong. And then finally, you'd like to have some interaction. So that's with the instructor, whether that's responding to questions quickly, or even running webinars with students. So on Systemi, we're developing an investment grade energy auditor certification. It's not quite ready, should be ready reasonably soon. And that involves 5 different courses with assessments, feedback provided on them, some instructor run webinars like this one, and then a final exam where you have to undertake an actual energy audit and submit it for marking and feedback. Now, this is a bit different to the way energy auditor instruction is often done. There's one energy auditor certification exists at the moment, and involves basically attending a really intensive training course followed by an exam immediately after. I sort of call that sort of training cram and exam. So you cram it all in and you have an exam, and then having been through that process myself and having watched others go through that process, unfortunately, there often isn't much retention of that knowledge. And you come back to the person 6 months later and they've forgotten it all. And additionally, when you get a multiple choice examination, it's not really testing your ability to do certain things which can't necessarily be answered in a multiple choice question, but which you are required to do in an energy audit. So in the energy audit series of training, the 5 modules are commissioning, managing and reviewing an energy audit, which is really about the client engagement. Now this particular module is developed for the energy users, but in actual fact, it's really important that the energy auditor understand this, can see things from the client's perspective. And that's why I developed this course. And in actual fact, I don't know of anyone else who's providing this sort of guidance on engaging with the user, so that you're getting a success rate much higher than the 50%. Because it's appalling. A 50% success rate is terrible. We need to be getting better than that with our energy audits. Then the next one is on the process of undertaking a successful energy audit, which is a detailed process that you can follow through and deliver an investment grade audit. Then it's energy fundamentals, which is looking at thermodynamics and physics fundamentals. Then we look at tools for energy auditors. What tools do you need? And how do you use a tool? How do you go about selecting the tools? And then finally, this is the one I'm writing right now, a really big unit on technologies for energy auditors. So it's covering things like lighting, ventilation, heating, cooling, and so on. So energy efficiency is the first fuel. In 2019, buildings accounted for nearly 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions, with 10 gigatons of, or 10 billion tons of greenhouse gas. So if we reflect on the number that I mentioned earlier, with a 5-year payback, you can probably get about a 20% saving on average. That would represent a saving of 2 gigatons if we could effectively identify and implement measures that reduce energy use in existing buildings. So I think it's a huge opportunity, and I think energy auditing can play a key role, but the energy audits need to be well done and they need to be implemented in order for that to happen. So just before the Q&A, I want to give you, thank you for coming on the webinar. I want to give you a special offer for coming on. We had quite a few people register, almost 70 people register. We don't have too many left though now. The webinar offer expires on the 22nd of March, this coming Monday at midnight, the end of the day. I'm happy to offer you 80% off the course Commissioning, Managing and Reviewing an Energy Audit. And I'm just going to put in the chat box the details of how you can take up that offer. Bear with me a second. This in the chat box. So there's just a link to that course at the top of that message I've just put in, yeah, and the coupon code to get that 80% off. Or if you've already done it, if you've already completed that course, I'll give you 80% off any other course in the series. Please email me if you want to do that. And then if you complete the course and provide me a review within 30 days, you'll then get 80% off your next course. So I hope that you're interested in that offer. We've put a lot of effort into these courses, and I think it's representing a phenomenal deal compared with other training out there on energy efficiency and energy auditing. So I'm happy now to take questions and answers. If you don't mind just putting your questions in the chat box. And I'm also interested in learning from you what other topics you might be interested in seeing energy audits on. Also, not sure if anyone on the call is delivering training, but if you're lecturing or training, I'd love to hear from you. Rajni is, I know, but we've got a very good relationship with Rajni. Rajni has a great course on solar passive design on the site. I urge you to look at it. Yeah. We'd love to collaborate with you if you're providing training. So without further ado, I'm not going to open up to any questions that people have in the chat about energy audits. Thanks for your comments there, Rajni. Has anyone got any questions?
Bruce, just a quick question. So if I want to enroll in that course, I'll just go online and then buy them and I put a coupon code,
Yeah.
code or? Okay.
Yes, use the coupon code at the checkout. Select that course, yeah, add it to your cart, use it at the checkout for that course, yeah.
Okay, no worries.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah.
No worries.
And actually that topic, commissioning and managing, isn't covered in that training on the Australian standard. So it's well worth it. Yeah.
So that first one, is that the first one of a series or?
That's the first one of the series, that's correct.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone got any other questions?
Just one more question, sorry, Bruce. Just wondering, so that course, is it like your own pace or is it structured like you have to be, is it an online course or how does it work?
It's at your own pace online, and there's quite a few assessments in there, so you have to do the assessments in order to get the certificate. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then if you get an assessment wrong, a question wrong, I'll give you feedback on that, and then you get a chance to answer another question. So yeah.
Okay.
Because you need feedback to learn. I'm a huge believer in providing feedback.
Yeah.
Testing knowledge, providing feedback. Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, if there's no more questions.
Just had a
I
quick
think
question.
Bruce, Liz has raised her hand. So
Oh,
maybe-
sure. Liz, please go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. I was just curious on if the course was specific to a certain region.
No, the
What
course
is
is
the
written.
content applicable across different regions?
Yeah, the content should be applicable everywhere. In developing the course, I've looked at various standards. There's a European standard 16 something, I can't remember the full number. There's ISO 50002, energy audit standard by ISO. There's ASHRAE, which is the American standard. Forget the number of that, 211, I think. Then there's the Australian standard 3598, which I helped write. So I've consulted those 4 standards in developing the series of courses. And broadly, yeah, the energy auditing principles are applicable everywhere. And I don't actually refer to any specific standard because I realize that standards are different in the training. But I guess I'm taking the principles in all the standards, plus a few more, and putting them into the course. Thanks for the question, Liz.
Bruce, I just wanted to ask you, there are many different types of buildings. Like in India, we have an examination for becoming an engineer, which is held by the government. So I suppose that if your course probably helps people to get through this exam, it would be great. But it doesn't always require that you need to be a certified, government certified auditor. But in that particular course, there are different areas like auditing a thermal power plant, to auditing a commercial building, to, there are so many wide variations. So what does the course, does your course address all the areas, or is it specific to any particular area?
Great question, Rosny. So the first 4 modules would apply to all areas. Like the process is the same you follow no matter what the facility. The commissioning is very similar. The physics fundamentals are the same, and the tools may be slightly different. I guess I'm focusing on more general purpose tools. The last module where I look at different technologies is where that would cover many facilities, but it won't cover every facility. For example, I haven't planned to develop a module within that on thermal power plants. But there would be modules on other processes, industrial processes like steam, compressed air, for example, yeah, or motor efficiency. So it's not necessarily going to look at everything, but I'm hoping to have quite a broad scope. And that's why it's actually such a hard and difficult module to develop, because there's a lot to cover.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm thinking within the certification, you wouldn't have to do all the modules, just those ones that were relevant to your area. You might, you'd have to do lighting, that's core, and probably ventilation, heating and cooling are probably core, but then the rest might be dependent on the application. Thanks, Rosny. Good question. Hard question. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Well, with that, I think we'll finish. Thanks everyone for your participation, and
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you in the courses. Well, thanks. Okay. See you. Bye.